Shocking experience. But what do you do when that discovery turns out to be something out of a sci-fi novel? We're about to find out. Here are the top 10 most mysterious bones ever discovered in the world.
Amazing!
Number 10. Skeleton action shots. No, this doesn't refer to dinosaur nudes, but it is probably the closest real-life thing we have to that, and is still extremely strange. The rules of life have almost always been kill or be killed, and never was this truer than during prehistoric times, as proven by some fossils, which are basically screenshots of epic battles in real life. One example shows a Protoceratops locked in combat with a Velociraptor. Yes, the Jurassic Park thing. The cause of death is a bit weird, since scientists conclude that the Velociraptor had cut the neck of the Protoceratops, and in turn had its arm broken. But how did they both die? Well, in the mother of all escalations, they simply got covered by a sudden sand flow and got preserved for ages. Another example shows a fish catching a pterosaur, that is, catching a fish. I know what you're thinking, and yes, this does look like a meme. The best guess as to how this had happened is that the biggest fish in the picture pulled them all into the water, and the pterosaur died holding the smaller fish. In turn, the bigger fish suffocated with such a large haul in its mouth, and they all descended into the murky depths together. So romantic. Number 9. Mysterious skulls from Antarctica. Back in 2014, the world was shocked about a story of ancient human remains in Antarctica, when it was previously thought that humans didn't form settlements there. What set the remains apart was the skulls, which were strangely elongated, and of course, resembled those of your generic aliens in the media. This led a lot of people to theorize that these were the ancient aliens that first visited Earth. But even though this is almost definitely not the case, the finding was still amazing. The elongation of the skulls resembles practices of ancient tribes in many parts of the world, such as in a large number of African tribes. Called artificial cranial deformation, they would intentionally deform the skull of a child using head binding to distort its normal growth. It is thought that having a larger head demonstrates a higher social status of the person, suggesting they're more intelligent and closer to the world of the spirits. Sadly, after a big debate online, it has been concluded that these Antarctic discoveries are most likely an elaborate hoax. If something like this was actually found, it would shatter our current knowledge about humanity's past. Number 8. Atacama Skeleton. Back in 2003, the skeleton of a human fetus was found in a deserted Chilean town called La Noria, in Chile's Atacama region. Aside from the skeleton looking like something from an Alien vs. Predator spinoff, it has caused a lot of debate because it had 64 unusual mutations in 7 genes that are linked to the skeletal system. The remains had a total of 10 pairs of ribs and a whole slew of other medical problems. While a lot of people say that it's an alien that was buried by ancient humans, the more realistic story might actually be just a very sad tale. A baby was born prematurely in an environment it couldn't survive, and, coupled with its defects, it probably succumbed to a horrible death. Man, this just got dark. Number 7. British Sea Monster. A lot of things wash up on British shores, and while most of them turn out to be used condoms and beer cans, once in a while you get something interesting. Back in 2011, a mysterious 30-foot or 9-meter skeleton was found on a beach near Aberdeen. While a lot of people quickly started saying that the creature was actually a badly decomposed whale or other sea mammal, this wouldn't be the first time a new sea creature had been found this way. Sadly, since its discovery, not a lot of follow-up research has been done on this creature, which probably means that it was a badly decomposed something. Number 6. Wisconsin Giants. No, it's not a lesser-known football team, but it does still relate to huge men that could probably beat you to a pulp. Way back in 1912, the New York Times published a story about 18 skeletons that were found on Lake Lawn Farm, which were around 10 feet or 3 meters in height, and had a double row of teeth, as well as 6 fingers and 6 toes. Now, if this isn't weird enough, these things would actually coincide with a lot of ancient teachings. since giant beings have been mentioned in everything, from random ancient notes to the Bible itself. The story also includes a conspiracy theory, which states that there are a lot more of these skeletons out there, and that they're being hidden by the government to hide humanity's true past. This, of course, is probably nonsense, and a more logical explanation would be that animal bones were just mixed up with human ones in order to create another convincing fake. Number 5. Giant Scorpion. Well, here's something for your next scheduled nightmare. A claw was found in the town of Prüm in Rhineland-Palatinate. That is said to have belonged to an ancient scorpion which was probably around 2.5 meters, or around 8.2 feet tall. While scientists have known about giant insects roaming prehistoric Earth, there was little evidence to support giant arachnids before this discovery. And yes, I said arachnids, which means that the past was littered by giant spiders and crabs that probably wanted to be as close to you as possible. While this is terrifying to all of us, rest assured that these spawns of Satan roamed Earth's oceans some 400 million years ago. Number 4. Nazi Demon Skulls. The story of this one is actually even stranger than its name. In 2014, a team of Russian scientists, led by a Vladimir Melenkov, found these things in a cave on Mount Bolshoi Chak. If these things aren't creepy enough, a briefcase and a map were found in the nearby woods that seemed to be from a member of the Ahnenerbe, the most secretive of Nazi institutions. The presence of the Ahnenerbe gives a lot of credit to this story, since their main mission during World War II was to conduct research into the real origin of humans and the Aryan race. While a lot of people did start pulling the hoax card, others have said that these things are real, considering that they're a perfect match for what most religions consider to be demons. Sadly, this is where information about these skulls stops, since no research or news articles about the skulls have come out lately, which means that they were most likely some weird handcrafting experiment. But let's be honest here, we'd much rather have it be some weird vodka-fueled experiment than a bunch of demon Nazis. Number 3. Skeletons of Rupkund. An icy lake full of ancient skeletons with weird injuries? Must be an archaeologist's wet dream. The skeletons were found thanks to a bit of luck, since they were at the bottom of the icy lake, and were only visible during a 1-month period when the ice melted. Tests also show that the skeletons were a mixed group of short people, presumed to be locals, and tall people who seem to have a unique mutation, connecting them to people that inhabit the Maharashtra region. The findings fueled a lot of debate regarding how they ended up there and what exactly happened. The best explanation so far is that the taller skeletons were on some sort of pilgrimage and were accompanied by the locals. Their demise is attributed to blunt force trauma to the head from what appears to be some round object. Yet research has concluded that weapons were not consistent with the wounds. It is therefore theorized that these poor guys were unlucky enough to be caught in a storm that hurled objects straight into their faces, which resulted in a clean yet painful death. Number 2. Tiny Winged Humans. These tiny creatures were found in the basement of an old house in London and are said to belong to Thomas Theodore Marilyn, a wealthy aristocrat from the 19th century. The creatures are in various states, from skeletons to decomposing remains, and most of them are held in small cases with their wings nailed to the wooden panels. The reason that they're here fits the whole wealthy collector alibi, with other contents of the collection being alleged notes from Jack the Ripper's victims, and human organs preserved in jars. The fairy collection also came with what looks like analysis and scientific data scribbled on paper, which could mean that these were being researched by the collector or someone else back in the 19th century. The whole collection is now owned by a man called Alex C.F., and since he is an artist, that makes it almost certain that these things are a hoax. In the end, the fairies are on display if you want to look at them, or indulge in a weird fetish. Number 1. Dragon Skeletons. Dragons have appeared in myths and legends in almost all of the world's cultures, so you can imagine how shocked people were when a skeleton resembling one of the beasts was found in Zhangjiakou City, China. A video of the skeleton appeared back in 2017, with a lot of the locals who filmed it being pretty convinced that it was, in fact, the real deal. The skeleton was approximately 60 feet, or 18.2 meters long, and closely resembled the dragons from Chinese legends, which looked like snakes on steroids and a few legs thrown into the mix. The skeleton was, of course, taken by the authorities to be examined, but then, no news has been published at the time this video is being made. While a lot of people may believe that these are genuine, the past proves differently. There are a lot of stories of seafarers finding skeletons and pulling the Dragon Bones card without taking the time to think and analyze. And in a lot of these cases, the skeletons were just proven to be the remains of birds, specifically the bones of their pelvis area. There are also skeptics who believe they were made using dozens of dog skeletons to create something of an art piece. Interestingly enough, there was even a dragon hoax back in 2013 that scared everyone walking on the beach it was found on. So why was this never reported? Well, it turned out to be a very clever ad for Game of Thrones, and come to think of it, also a very bad spoiler. Sadly, since we are yet to be updated on the dragon find, the story about the dog bones seems to be the most credible explanation here. Man, that made me depressed. Do you think most of these were hoaxes? And what do you feel about hoaxes in general? Are they one of the worst things about the internet, or just a bit of fun? I'd like to know, so make sure to drop